Throughout her career, both in the small business environment and the corporate healthcare arena, Rachael has had the opportunity to lead large and small teams and thousands of employees through numerous change environments. She has served on community boards, city commission committees, and has volunteered with various organizations. She and her husband Jeff have been married 21 years and are the parents of a 13-year-old son, Caleb, who is also a business owner and the published author of Island Games, Mystery of the Four Quadrants, currently living in Moorhead. So thank you, Rachael.
Thank you.
Welcome to the seat. And what just happened a couple weeks ago, you did a relaunch of Caleb's book.
Yeah.
Again, this kid's 13 years old, and he was, how many of the Amazon categories was he in?
He has a new publisher, and so he relaunched his book with several changes in it, and he became a #1 international best-selling author on day one of the relaunch, and had over 30,000 downloads in over 15 categories throughout the world.
At 13 years old.
But he goes,
Incredible.
he was featured in New York Times Square, and he goes, eh. I was like, okay, what else can you do? I don't know.
So next on our panel is Robin Nelson. She serves as the CEO for the Boys and Girls Club for the last 6 years, after holding multiple leadership roles in the for-profit world for 23 years prior. She is heavily involved in the community and currently serves as a board officer for the Great Plains Food Bank Board, on the Fargo Public Schools Foundation Board, and on the United Way Education Collaborative. She was elected to 3 four-year terms on the Fargo School Board, in which she served 2 terms as president and multiple years as the school district's legislative chair. During her time on the school board, she partook in hiring 2 school district superintendents through national CEO search processes. She has a unique perspective in that she supervises CEOs while also serving as a CEO herself. Robin and her husband Russell Peterson have 3 children, aged 26, 21, and 14. So welcome, Robin. Mr. Dave Ekman is just getting started in business, but Dave's a local entrepreneur with over 35 years of business experience. While attending NDSU and majoring in agricultural economics, Mr. Ekman started in the computer business in 1981 by purchasing a Computerland franchise at the age of 20. This began a series of business ventures, including a technology company, Corporate Technologies, and an internet service provider, Corporate Communications, a travel agency, Travel, hotel development and investment, a self-storage business, and various real estate projects. After his retirement as CIO of Multiband Corporation, a field services company with over 3,000 employees, which he helped start and subsequently sold, is now president of Bridge Hospitality, a hotel development company that he and a partner own. Dave also serves on various private and public boards and committees. Dave lives in Fargo, North Dakota with his wife Paula of 26 years and has 3 children. Hobbies include golf, water skiing, traveling, sailing. Where'd you just get back from?
Somewhere warm.
Yeah.
That's
So welcome,
anywhere.
Mr. Dave Ekman. So because I am not a master of this process, and Andrea Hochhalter is, she is always around to help facilitate these conversations. So I'm going to let Andrea introduce herself and tell everybody what you just started a couple weeks ago.
Well,
Take a minute to do that.
thank you very much. Wasn't expecting any airtime. So, Andrea Hochhalter, and I am, yes, your facilitator for the day, and that is what I do. So, my company is called Hue Life. I just recently rebranded as I merged with another organization. So, I'm very much interested to hear what they have to say as well, too, because I feel like I could use a lot of mentoring and coaching as I'm working on building my business and making some of those strategic changes. And that is some of the work that I do. So I do a lot of strategic planning, facilitation of change management for organizations, leadership development, meeting design, engaging groups to get to shared outcomes. I try to make it seem really easy for you, but at the end of the day, you're like, wow, that wasn't so hard, because I did a lot of the work beforehand. So anyway, that's what I do. So thanks for having me host today for facilitating. So I'd like to start by first giving the panel an opportunity to further expand a little bit around their role in being a CEO. Is, you know, more of your, kind of your philosophy when it comes to your leadership role as a CEO. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about the 6 basic needs that exist, within leadership: certainty, variety, significance, love, growth, contributions. So if you could each just take a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about what it is that drives you as a CEO, that philosophy. So a couple minutes each to start.
All right. Well, what drives me? What doesn't drive me? I get pretty excited about what I do, but everything I do is developing people and developing teams. I am not one to say I'm the expert by any means. I was recruited into this nonprofit world by a fellow school board member to run a licensed childcare for 5,000 kids with 230 employees, and I thought, I don't know how to do that. And he said, Robin, run it like a school district. And I said, okay, I can figure that out. So here I am. I know nothing. I manage teachers, people that are much more experienced than I am. But what I did learn is leadership in business sense transcends business details. I'm not the expert in my organization. I am the face of the organization, and I have to trust them to do the jobs that they do. And I tell them what to do. I don't tell them how to do it because they're the experts, and I empower them. But I also very much require them to get out in the public and learn and give back to their communities, because they learn by being in groups just like this. I feel it is our obligation to share our business knowledge, and I'll expand upon that a little bit later, but for me it's all about people, and I make the tough decisions and they make me look good because I have to go out and market the organization, and that's kind of how I view the CEO role. As far as some of those Tony Robbins qualities, I am not enjoying life unless I'm challenged. And I surround myself with people that constantly challenge me. I get bored very easily. And my best friend is my harshest critic, and we wouldn't be best friends if she didn't shoot straight with me. So I enjoy spirited conversations, and maybe that's why I've been on the school board for so long. I have a really thick skin, but I grow from that, and I appreciate it. So.
How many people have taken that Tony Robbins quiz? What's your driving force? Just me? Mine's contribution. Yeah, if you go online, you look up Tony Robbins driving force quiz. It literally takes probably 3 minutes. It's 10 questions, and at the end, you will fall into one of those 6 categories of what is your key driving force in your life. So not only as a person, but if you have anything to do with sales, it helps to figure out what that prospect, that client's driving force is, and it just helps you to better sell to that person as well. So it's an interesting little quiz. Anyway.
So what drives me ultimately is service and quality. And whether it was in my healthcare background or in construction or design or my real estate business, whatever I'm doing, it's really about serving others. And so I've taken the philosophy as a leader, more as a servant leader approach, similar to Robin, building very successful teams underneath me to achieve and grow and thrive and to learn from them as well. Business and leadership it's a balancing act, and we'll probably talk through that a lot today. What I've found over the course of time is that you don't necessarily have to be the expert in every single thing. You have to align and trust the people that you're working with and know who to keep on your team and know who not to have on your team as you move along in the business process. The other philosophy that I have is listening and learning. As a clinician, I had the opportunity to, fortunately, by insurance regulations, have 10 minutes with a customer, with a patient, to learn what their issue was, to identify how we're going to solve the problem, and listen to what their actual needs were and to serve them to the best of our abilities from a medical perspective. And so as a CEO of a local company here in a service-oriented company, it's really the same philosophy that I use to approach our customers, learning, listening, same thing with my team as well. So I think if we follow that approach, it's very successful for me. It's successful for the companies that I own and run and manage.
Good afternoon, everyone. I realized when Kurt was reading the bio that reminded me that I'm kind of getting older. A few years ago, I was meeting a vendor rep, and we kind of crossed paths. Somehow we didn't see each other in the lobby, and one of my employees said, "You didn't see him, the gray-haired guy that walked by a little bit ago?" And I went, "Oh my God, I have gray hair." But that translates to experience. I think one of the leadership qualities I had was I had high expectations, not just for myself and for what we wanted to do, but for our team that we built. And there's nothing wrong with that. That really pushes you. And I kind of did the management by walking around and trying to learn all the different aspects, knowing that you can't do everything. Even as a small company, when you just have a few employees, your role is different than when you have 300 or 3,000 employees. But there's always a lot to do, and trying to learn and put people in the best spots and making them successful. Then the other thing, I think, philosophy-wise, was culture. We always tried to build a really good culture, mix that work and the fun and the appreciation and recognition of the team. And I've been around with a lot of businesses, sold and acquired and purchased and started, etc. But regardless of the size, those are a few things I think that are standard through all of them.
Thank you. So when you stepped into your CE role, it may or may not have been what you expected it to be. Was it a surprise to anybody what your role was as a CEO after you took the position? Yeah? Okay, maybe it aligned, maybe it didn't align, you learned as you go, but as you stepped into your CE role, I'm curious as to, one, what is on that job description, and what surprised you about the role that maybe you weren't expecting? So if you want to talk about that, if you have a story to tell along those lines, we'd love to hear your story.
So my story is, a couple years ago, I officially took my companies back over, and I designated myself the CEO. And the reason why was not because of title, not because of a categorization. It was because the businesses were, they weren't struggling, but they weren't growing. And so 21 years of, or actually 20 years of operating our business kind of on the side, and I was doing my other normal career stuff with my healthcare, and the businesses were just there. They were just existing, and they were minimally growing. And I would continuously give feedback and give ideas and interject, we should do this, we should do that, but there was really no structure to it. So when I retired from my medical career 2 years ago, I went on a journey, and I really tried to dig into different types of philosophies of coaching and mentoring and training and business education, street smart business education, and really taking my MBA to a totally different level to rebuild my company. So what I came back with after 6 months, I went to my husband and I said, who's the president of our company, I said, by the way, I'm now the CEO. And so it wasn't, as a small business owner, it's not like you work for 10 years and you move yourself up in the ranks, and then you work for another 10 and you move yourself up in the ranks. It was a designation because there was an intentional purpose for our company to grow the company, to thrive the company. And as a business owner, whether it's a small business or a large business, an executive role or a non-executive role, you have to have someone who's driving the ship. There has to be someone who's behind it, who's helping to direct and construct and develop and strategize. And so that was really ultimately my role. As a visionary and an implementer, I found it to be a little bit challenging because I wanted to do it all, and I think we'll end up digging into some of those discussions now. But the shift as me becoming the CEO of the Coatings Authority was essentially me designating myself, and I think for all of you small business owners out there with, that type of philosophy, it's okay to establish your role and your authority and power in your company, because you need to have that going forward to align and to establish credibility.
So if I remember the question about the job description of a CEO, is it something that changes a lot? Is it a daily task? Is it an annual goal? The answer is yes, it's all of those. It's important that a company, regardless of the size, has someone who's the leader, and the staff and the team, wants and needs a leader. They want that someone to go to, and you can have multiple leaders in an organization, but someone has to have that role to help make those decisions, to get things from a point of where nothing's happening to turn it one way or the other, whether it's right or wrong, to make those decisions. So I think that's really important. In the CEO's position, president, owner, doesn't really matter. The people that you have on your team really look up to you, and even when you're young, you might not realize that right away, but it's a role that's very important in the company.
Dave, you mentioned getting old. I just had to fill out a survey for my national organization, and I now qualify as and up. That hit me today. I am no longer the youngest one in my organization. So if anybody asks you how old you are, you can just say and up. So I view my job as a CEO two ways. I am the outside link to the organization. When I took over our organization, it was very internal. And I thought, they were like, where are you? Why are you not working in your desk? My staff was actually resentful. And I said, I need to get us known. I need to build these relationships. And over the years, I saw things like their vocabulary increased. Their vocabulary was poor. And something that simple, just getting out in the world and exposing yourself to others is so important. So I view myself as the intro to this whole organization. We are the link to the outside world. My job is to create awareness. We need to maintain our reputation. I need to form beneficial relationships. We need to leverage relationships within the outer world. We need to know what is ticking in our market. What's the culture out there? I'll share a short story. I am one of 15 after-school ambassadors for the United States ambassadors, and I'm North Dakota's representative. And we advocate at the federal level for after-school funding and programming. And recently, the president's budget came out and zeroed out all after-school dollars. So the president of our national organization wrote a letter to the editor that she and I were going to jointly sign. And I said, you have no idea what kind of conservative market we live in. I will kill every donor if I sign my name to this letter. You need to know what the tone is in the culture, and that's your market. And so you have to be very careful how you position yourself. The CEO is the representative of the company. And a lot of times if somebody doesn't respect you as a CEO, they're not going to support what you do. And sometimes that's unfortunate, but it is the way of the world. Dana and I just had this conversation. My second job, I think, is to understand not only the market, but balance that with the limitations of my team. It's my job to provide them, the experts, with the resources they need, and then I need to get out of their way. And like I said, I tell them what to do, not how to do it. Most of our decisions in my organization are made at our director level team, and they're made through consensus. But sometimes things get tough, and it's the CEO's job to make the tough decisions and stand behind them. And I often say, okay, I need to make the call on this one. We're not getting anywhere. That's my job. I'll take the heat for it. And they most of them go, thank God, And so somebody does have to step up and lead. We needed to reorganize when I came in because everybody had these little jobs everywhere that they thought that they were good at, and we needed to reorganize, and you have to have some structure. You need to have somebody to say, you know what, she represents our organization, she's going to speak to it. When the media show up at the door, go get Robin or go get our marketing communications person. You need to have some clear job roles, and they need to be well known. So organizational charts are very important, in my opinion.
Let's build a little bit on what you're talking about, Robin, with that link. A link and I would say maybe about the mindset of a leader. So the internal role that you have to play, the external role you have to play, as Dave had mentioned, the responsibilities that may be quarterly, annual. So yeah, you need to be the face, you need to be out there in the community, you need to be marketing. You also have a lot of obligations internally as well too, to the team members, to the finances and so forth. So can you talk a little bit about that link or that kind of whole and how you spend those times and make those decisions? And that's this is for everybody.
We're gonna make Dave go first.
So the mindset of the CEO, my daughter went to a business school and it's kind of an entrepreneurship program, and it was really interesting because it's the ongoing thing. Are you born with those skills or do you acquire them, right? And I'm not really sure either. I do know when I was about 10 years old, I was the first one in our neighborhood to have a BB gun, and I would rent it out to my friends to use it and actually charge them to do it. So maybe mine started young. But yeah, I think there is a lot to do with the mindset and the goal and the setting of objectives that comes with that. And I think you learn your path on your way too. I've got a lot of people that used to work for me that work at other places, and you kind of just watch the growth and say, a few years ago maybe they really didn't have the ability, you didn't think, and they turned into great business owners and growing their companies. So I think it's a combination of that.
I would agree too that there's a great percentage that's mindset, and then there's also a great percentage that's actually action. Because I've fortunately and unfortunately worked under many different leaders in my career, and what I've found is I've learned from every single one of them what to do, what not to do, and how to approach situations, how not to approach situations. And I've worked with executives who have a great mindset. They speak the language and they have all these wonderful thoughts, but they absolutely do nothing. They don't pull the trigger, they don't make decisions, they don't execute. And then I've had the philosophy of learning and growing and trying to find that right balance between how do you establish the right boundaries with both mindset and action, and create the wins for your company by combining that. I would definitely say that it doesn't necessarily come from being taught how to be a leader. I think people are naturally born with leadership qualities, but as you continue to educate and grow and develop and seek mentoring and coaching and training, that those natural inborn abilities continue to develop over the course of time. And I also have gray hair, and I would say that a lot of the gray hair has come from, oh my, did I make a mistake in how I approached that situation. So having the mindset of being willing to learn and grow and be a risk taker as an entrepreneur and as a business owner and as a leader, all of those things definitely contribute to the success as a leader and as a CEO or any position in an organization.
One of our questions that we needed to prepare for was how much of the CEO's position is success is mindset. And you mentioned mindset and action. And I view mindset is all of it for me, because my mindset is what motivates me with my discipline. But going back to a couple of things I just heard growing up and leaders and what makes a leader, leadership, I used to think it was something that you are, and that certain people have certain charismatic qualities that really raise them to the top. My whole life I've always kind of been not chosen to be a leader, but other people lead me to that leadership position. And maybe it's because I'm outspoken and I have a big mouth and I'm passionate, but I always end up there. But you know what else? A lot of people ask me, what did you give up as a mother as being in an elected office. And I said, I gave up some time, but the trade-off is amazing. And exactly what you shared about your son, our kids tend to be leaders too. So they are learning it from their environment. Both of my kids were DECA state presidents, presidents of their fraternities, and leaders in their organizations. So you learn those things through exposing yourself to other leaders, and that's why this networking group is so beneficial. And so there's always a balance there, but the trade-offs and some of the things that you might miss far outweigh the development and the outcomes that you and your family and your business receives as a result. So it's all a balancing act. And you cross your fingers and hope it ends up all right at the end.
Great, yep, so balance, blend.
Harlan works with CEOs on a daily basis. Are there people that you've worked with sitting in CEO roles, president roles that are uncoachable? That you know after a period of time they should not be in that position? or-
I walked away from a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because I refuse to work with them because they're uncoachable.
Is that their mindset?
Yeah, that's their mindset. They have the answer. These people do not have that mindset.
Right.
Because they're open, they're saying that they're there because they want to build, they want to create, they want to challenge, they want to do it. The uncoachable ones that I've run across are pretty self-centered. The ego is bigger than this room, and you're not going to get any closer.
Yep.
Yeah, and definitely what I hear from this panel is they're doing the work because they believe in it. They're, I think, mission driven. People very humble, so great leadership. The CEO position comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of breadth, a lot of depth of responsibility, and that can be lonely at the top. And Robin commented just a second ago about being here in this space and being a part of this group as a way to be connected. So it's not so lonely at the top, but what do you do for that balance? How do you make those decisions of what it is that you're going to take responsibility for and own and what you're going to delegate to accomplish the goals? And everyone up here has been talking about growth in the organization. So can you talk about that a little bit?
At times it can be lonely at the top. And I hate to even use the word top. It's lonely at this title. I answered to a board, but my team really counts on me to lead them. So there's certain things you can't share or seek from them. I'm all about showing weakness and asking for help because I can't be everything to everybody. So I really leverage my internal team and their strengths and say, you know what, I can't think through this today, and I know you're good at proofing papers. Will you take care of this for me? I'm okay admitting fault and things like that. But I have a lot of different relationships, and I've got, like I said, a dear friend that's brutally honest with me. I need that. I need somebody to kick my butt once in a while. I've got friends for different parts of my life. When I need an uplift, I have a friend for that. But that's how our friendship is based. I have, if I want somebody to really shoot straight with me, go have lunch with Dana Delval. she'll tell you. But that's what you need sometimes. I
can concur on that.
I can't sit in my office. I'm not fulfilled that way. But I'm also not the best leader if I'm not fulfilled. So I need to get out and connect. And I'm not going to learn anything by sitting in my office. I learn more from people than I ever have from a book. And so experience is so important to me, and I visit with my peers. When somebody joins this organization, he's not here today, John Fisher, when he started with Charism, I think he said I was his first call. It's like, welcome. What do you need? We have an abundance mentality in this industry, and I want to help you, and you can help me. We can share. There are no trade secrets. Scarcity doesn't fly anymore. Cutthroat competitiveness is, thank God, a thing of the past. Remember the 80s? The 80s philosophy was just cutthroat and you beat down your competitor. I'm so much more productive in today's world because it really is about helping other people. And so when they succeed, we all succeed. So you see, I'm starting to ramble. That's why I have my notes. So there you go. Good third.
I would say that I don't know that I've ever felt lonely, honestly, because
what I've done is I've had the amazing opportunity to work with so many incredible people. And I think maybe the advantage is when you're in healthcare, you have to pull together as a team. There is no I in any of that. And in my businesses that I've developed, I've had the amazing opportunity to just learn and grow from so many incredible people. So I don't really feel like I've personally ever been lonely, because I haven't set myself up for being excluded or not being inclusive with everyone around me. And I think it's a personal choice that you really work to, or I have worked to strive to network with other people. I would say about a year ago, whenever I joined the 100, this was probably one of the biggest leaps of faith that I've ever done locally here with the Coatings Authority, because we had established the company in 1996. We knew nothing about business. We knew nothing about anything that we were doing. My husband just decided he didn't want to pursue his teaching career, and so it was the alternative because it was something he enjoyed to do. And over the course of time, what ended up happening was the networks developed, but they didn't develop to the approach that they've developed now over the course of this last year locally. And I would say groups like this create the opportunity where I can learn and grow from all of you as business owners and leaders, and we can learn from Kurt and the networking that he does. So I think all of those opportunities that we have create the idea or the ideal that we don't have to become lonely at the top, because I really feel like I can call any one of you and say, hey, I've got this really interesting situation, how should I handle this? And I think that's really important. One of the other questions that Andrea asked is about delegating. And I would say in the executive role, it's very different than in my small business role, but I've definitely learned how to delegate appropriately and when to delegate, and how to establish the right boundaries in delegation so that I maintain knowledge and awareness of what I'm doing and what the company is doing, but yet I'm trusting, whether it be an outside source or an inside source, to manage certain aspects of the company. I think delegating is extremely important, and finding the right balance so that you're not just turning it over and then forgetting about it. I had a horrific experience with turning my financials over to an accountant that had great credentials. It took me a year and a half to undo the entire mess that he created in 6 months. And it cost me tens of thousands of dollars because I took the approach for once in my life, oh, I'm just gonna hand it over. And that learning experience was very powerful to me, to say trust, but verify, delegate, and be responsive to follow up and to know exactly where your company is going and the direction you're going.
I hope that accountant wasn't one of our members.
No. No.
I don't need to say a lot more things. Rachel is really very close to what I would answer as well. Networking is key, whether it's with other people that you know, people in your organization, or in your industry. You know, whether you don't have to be a large type of industry or have to be a franchise or whatever those opportunities are, go to some of those trade shows and seminars and networking. Some of my great memories of learning and meeting people and so forth over the years were through events like that. So yeah, it doesn't have to be lonely. I mean, you do need to be prudent. You know, if you're at the company Christmas party, you probably don't want to be the last one to leave if you're having a good time. But you know, yeah, I think networking is really good, and delegating. I could go into lots of stories, past history where I've done a good job and a bad job of doing that.
Do you have any you can share?
Yeah.
We would like to hear.
Yeah, just learning how to do things that I didn't know, you know, young in my career, how to do or didn't want to do. It was inexperienced. I remember very young, had a person working for me that really should have been fired. He wasn't doing a good job. He wasn't doing our business any good, and didn't really want to do it, you know. But I knew I had to because I didn't have an HR team at the time. a friend of mine that was from another city, actually, in a computer store in Grand Forks, said, "Do you want me to come down there, Dave, and fire him for you?" Because he's hurting your business. And that was the thing. I remember that. I'm like, no, I got this. I'm going to do it myself. And I do have to say, after you fire the first person or two, then it gets a lot easier. So I kind of became hard ass after a while. One of the first areas, though, was two things that I outsourced early on was my accounting team, not to a firm, but just hired people within, and then, of course, used professional firms later on as we grew. But I was busy helping other people with computers and how they could do their own accounting and all the different things on a computer system, and was ignoring mine. And it gets time to the end of the year, and you're trying to put all your things together, and it was a mess. And I realized, and would say that any company, as you're growing small, try to spend the energy, find people to help, do whatever it takes, spend the money to get your books done timely. Because that data is really helpful when you're analyzing your business and where you're going to go the next year. And if you're months and a year behind in getting those numbers put together, that's a bad deal. And HR department too. I never really was that. I didn't like it all that much, so that was another one I delegated.
You guys all said lonely at the top like it was a bad thing. When I put that in the notes, I look at it completely differently. I like that loneliness. I like being the one that's going to make that decision. It's bottom of the ninth, bases are loaded, there's 2 out. I want to be at the plate. I want to be up to bat. We're bringing the ball in, we're down by 1. I want to take the shot with 2 seconds left. And I think there's a lot of CEOs that have that. I mean, it's lonely, but it's a nice loneliness, knowing that you're pulling that wagon, making that decision. So I look at it as a positive thing, but maybe that's just me.
I think that's interesting. I mean, it says a lot about the different personalities and the qualities, traits, characteristics that fill the position of a CEO, and why we need to be surrounding ourselves with other people. Because we can't be highly competent in every single area. So we do need to be surrounding ourselves. And I think, you've said wonderful things about how you're reaching out and building, those networks. And does anybody have any specific examples of where you've had a coach or where you've had a mentor and how they've really helped you build your business or have had a positive impact, or maybe even in hindsight a negative impact? But any thoughts about finding those people, those coaches and those mentors?
Well, let's do a quick poll of everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Who is currently hiring a business coach or has in the past hired a business coach?
Great number to have. Yeah.
And we have a couple in the room.
Who hasn't and is interested in it? This is not a marketing play for anybody, but I mean, truly. Yeah.
I'm sure I can take it all.
So yeah, Harlan's over there writing it down.
I should be taking a picture of this. Shouldn't I?
Circle them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any specific thoughts around the coaching and mentoring? This is off script.
I have a great story about this. As a corporate executive, we had to, well, we didn't have to, but we were encouraged to have an executive coach. And so fortunately I had the most amazing executive coach. And this was the first time in my career that I actually had someone to learn from, because unfortunately the people that were above me were not necessarily the people that I necessarily wanted to learn from, and they didn't have the same traits and characteristics that I felt I needed to grow. So the organization hired an executive coach, and she royally kicked my butt. And literally I gave everything to her and she gave everything back to me. We met on a bi-weekly basis for an hour, and every single time I was just sweating to death when she would get out of there, because it was so intense, and it allowed me to really dig into, as a leader, how did I show up? How did I enter a room? How did I exit a room? And what were the different things that you needed to have as a leader to learn and grow and develop successful teams? And when I left the organization, that was one of the things that I just felt like I needed to continue with that type of mentoring and coaching. And I did a speaking engagement a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago maybe, and someone asked me, how do you know when you've had a great coach? And I said, well, they make you sweat. Because they aren't there to build, you know, all the fluffiness around life. They're there to help you learn and grow. And so I encourage everyone to have that type of a relationship with a coach or a mentor that they make you sweat. Currently, I have coaches and business trainers and leaders that I work with on an international basis, and I learn from people across the world because, again, I'm not just looking at my industry, as you said. You know, I look outside of my industry, and I look at different ways and different philosophies. I'm working with a coach who's absolutely one of the most arrogant people I've ever met in my life, complete opposite of me. Can't stand him really personally from a business perspective or a life perspective, but boy do I learn from him. And I think that type of thing helps you to become, it helps me to become challenged and grow and learn. So I definitely encourage coaching and mentoring and continuing education throughout the span of your career.
I had a couple experiences with business coaches, and one not so good, one pretty good. And I think in hindsight, it probably had to do with my mindset and mentality going into it. Because if you have a team of people and say, hey, we're gonna do this, and it's not your idea bringing it, now you're guarded, right? And you're like, why is someone coming in gonna tell me what to do, etc. But I think there are a lot of good things but you really have to get your mind around the fact that you want to learn and accept that input. And you know, whether you follow through is up to you. But, mindset has a good thing to do. The other thing I was gonna ask from kind of a mentor or having other people, there's two things. One is, how many people are part of a franchise here? Got a few. You know, my first company was a franchise company, and I was young and didn't know, but I have to say that really helped me, I think, in a lot of successes that I had, because I was able to, you know, be involved with different people that were similar as me and get a lot of input. And you know, there's things that are good and bad with franchises, but I would say if you are involved, you know, take advantage of those opportunities, or industry associations, or whatever it is. The other thing is, most small companies don't have boards. Maybe your spouse or something that you talk to, but you know, just having a couple people that are business people that might be willing to help and so forth is a good thing. And as you get larger, you know, a lot of times boards are required.
I think it's also really important I require that our staff has professional development, and that's about the only time I ever get upset with my staff is if they don't spend their professional development budget. That is how important and how valued growth is in our organization. So we need to be coaches as well, and we need to reciprocate as mentors, and people tend to seek you out, but when to coach, or can I be on your board, I want to learn from you, and that's your obligation too. We need to pay it forward, and because somebody helped us as well. And it's not always a professional relationship. Sometimes it's we're going to get a group of CEOs together and network, and we just, it doesn't always have to be so formal. So there are informal and formal mentoring things, and it doesn't always have to cost you money. So I encourage you, if money is an issue, find another way to find a mentor.
Thank you all. In Gino Wickman's book, The Traction, two roles that are talked about significantly are the visionary role, the person who is looking ahead to the future, the idea, the creative, and the integrator, the executor of the plan, the person that is a connector within the organization, connecting the dots to execute on that plan. In a small organization or a startup organization, you often have to play both roles. So, in that case, how much time do you spend in the visionary role, and are you doing it in a structured way, quarterly, monthly, annually. How are you balancing that?
Okay, I'm going. So first of all, about a year ago or 9 months ago or whatever, when Kurt gave me the information about traction, I read the book, and I hadn't read the book, and I typically read about maybe 4 to 5 books a month, so I'm usually really good about keeping up with business books, but I hadn't read that book. That's probably, and that's one of my recommended books, because it's really one of the most play-by-play business books, easy to understand, and it allows you to actually implement and execute a strategy and a plan. So as part of that, I really learned about those 2 different roles in being a visionary and an implementer. And for myself, I'm actually both, and I asked permission from Harlan, is that okay? And he said it's okay, so I'm gonna go with that. And but I do have to find the right balance. And so in my visionary role, I spend probably about 70% of my time as a visionary, developing the strategic plan, really optimizing that strategic plan, and then moving my companies forward. As an implementer, I spend about the other 30% then, because I know how to do the math on that. But what I do is I delegate, or I contract out, if it's not within my company, I contract out sources that help me in the implementer role. And I try to find the right people to fit the right seats and find that right balance, exactly as Traction outlines for you to do that. So I think it's important for me to really know that I have to spend a good majority of my time on the visionary aspect of it, because that's really what takes the organization to the next level. And for many years, I didn't really play that role or even the implementer role, and we just let it grow naturally and organically. Now we have a very, very specific strategic plan as far as how the company is going to grow, and we execute and we manage, and we look at our scorecard on a weekly basis, and we drive the business around that. So there is a role daily, weekly, sometimes hourly, sometimes by the minute, when we're making changes and growth. But the interesting thing was, I looked back, so one of the tools, we talk about business plans and we talk about all of the planning, and I follow a program from this one coach that I can't stand, but I love him because he gives me all these great things. He created what he calls a blueprint, and he asks these very specific questions. It's a one-pager, like a one-page business plan. And I looked back on my 2016 blueprint, because I have to continuously update that, and I went, wow. I actually, just going back, it gives you the opportunity to say, wow, you executed on those, you implemented those, yeah, you missed the boat on that, but you're gonna come back to it. And having some kind of tool that resonates for you, because everyone's a different learner, is very important to have in your company.
How often do you do that blueprint?
The blueprint is annual, but I actually, it's supposed to be an annual thing, but I look at it on a monthly basis, and sometimes on a weekly basis, depending on what I'm doing, because the very first question is really about what are your most critical risk points, and sometimes it takes more than a week to plug the hole, because in a business, sometimes you have to really forego all the hoopla and the craziness and the philosophies of building this, monster business over the next 20 years, and you have to say, what do I need to do today to plug the hole so we don't end up having, an extreme flood, not a good flood. Yeah.
How many people do a 1 or 2 page business plan on a semi-annual or quarterly basis? Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, that was exactly my question. I gotta give kudos. No, that's good. I think it is important, and in fact, I know it is. And I think back, I was fortunate, had a gal that worked with me on our leadership team way back when our business was real small, and she was into the soft skills, and I was more like, how many computers are we gonna sell this month? But she really helped us said business planning is important and helped put that together. And even when we were a small company, we had 30-page business plans. You know, each department and division and what our goals were, and we reviewed those, and we looked at them and we saw how we achieved, and we celebrated those successes, you know, at the end of the year. And I think it's really important. It's not the funnest process, believe me. But if you're an owner or CEO of your business, it's just a great blueprint, guidebook, whatever it is. And how else are you going to measure your successes? Right? Don't just keep winging it. So spend some time, and whether it's a 1-pager or a 30-pager, it's, you know, that's not the important thing. It's to have that business plan. I'd really suggest you do that.
And an FYI, the third Wednesday in August will be the 2-page business plan, is what we're gonna spend the full 90 minutes talking about here, so that'll be fun.
You know, we have a business plan, we have a strategic plan, but I consider them guidelines, and it's a little bit different because I'm in the nonprofit world. A lot of instinct has to be, I use a lot of instinct, how we drive our organization. My staff gets a little nervous when things are going too smoothly, because then they're gonna go, okay, Robin's gonna put something in there, and then she's gonna make us grow again. So you kind of have to know how to ebb and flow your growth. And maybe that comes from experience, but I firmly believe in my instincts. And I used to second guess myself, and now I'm old enough to know that it has worked, and we continue to grow that way. As far as being a visionary and an implementer, I think you're exactly right. When you start, you kind of have to know how the organization works, and all of the ins and outs, and how to, the procedures. But what I've done in this organization is I have created a culture of excellence and high output. And if somebody joins our team and they aren't meeting expectations, they know it, and they weed themselves out. So if you set your expectations high, and your team really believes in it, they will continue to produce. And then when somebody isn't performing, I don't really ever have to fire anybody anymore. I have a conversation, is this really working? I mean, do you feel comfortable with what you're contributing to our organization and to the level that the rest of our team is? And a lot of times I really don't. I am in way over my head. And I say, you know, maybe this isn't the right position for you at this time in your life. And they tend to let themselves go. Now, I mean, yeah, you gotta let people go when they are insubordinate or break policy knowingly, but I also think that our culture is, I've been very careful to build a culture of forgiveness, because if you don't allow for some mistakes, you're going to have people that are afraid to take risks and grow. So our team really sets the direction for what we do operationally, but I create that culture of security and longevity and financial stability that gives them the confidence to grow. So quick story, I made a presentation to all the college campus presidents the other day with a couple other groups that I work with, and Anne from MSU said, Robin, why are you telling us? Shouldn't you be talking to the people that actually do the work? And I went, yeah, I'll connect my workers with your workers. How's that sound? And you know, but that's being, I said I needed your blessing to start to work with your workers. And so it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but it is kind of the truth. A lot of the times now, I mean, I have to admit, I do scrub toilets. I mean, that's what you do in a nonprofit world. You have to wear a lot of hats. But I'm at the more strategic level, and I have to discipline myself to stay there.
Thank you. In referencing the business plans, they likely, I expect, should have something in there in regards to your target market, to your niche, knowing who your target customer is. And so I can tell you honestly myself, I'm a shiny object girl. I get distracted really easy. It's like, oh, that's a great idea, let's do that. You know, or do you see what's going on over here? Here's an industry trend, you know, this is coming, this is really great, we gotta jump on this ship. So how do you keep on track with knowing what your market is and your customer?
Well, I'll talk to the bright and shiny thing, because I like bright and shiny too, and I get excited. So I very purposely my right-hand person rains on my parade at the right times. And it's like, you're a dream killer. You know, she's like, yeah, but you're gonna make us do all the work. And so I have to say, you're right. So I very much give that person a lot of credit, and I listen to her because she knows that she's gonna have to motivate the operational team. So you need that balance in an organization, and you need to be able to identify your weaknesses. So we really play off each other's strengths. I mean, we do all of the strength finders and the Myers-Briggs, and we determine, I'm good at this and not at this. So somebody says they're struggling with something, I say, you know what, you need to go visit with this person because they're going to be able to help you with that. So I think it's a matter of balance, and you use your internal and external connections to discipline yourself, and that's what I do.
So I'm going to take you back to 1996. There was no target market. It was if the phone rang and someone offered you an opportunity to go paint a fence, you went and painted a fence. If you could get an exterior project or a bathroom, you did it. There was absolutely no target market because as a startup company, you're just trying to get going, and I really believe that it's okay as a new company to really get a feel for what is your target market by allowing yourself to know it's okay to expand and to keep that larger than what you would initially do or what you would do in the future. So hindsight is always 20/20. However, over 21 years now in the business, when we get calls for specific things like a bathroom or a fence or a deck, the answer is, I'm sorry we don't, however, here's who I would recommend to provide that service to you because they will do an excellent job for you. And knowing your target market as you continue to grow, your target market, I believe, in business will change over the course of time. And so you have to be willing to ebb and flow with that. Now we have a very, very specific target market. However, I'm kind of an opportunity person and a visionary to say, never thought about that opportunity. Let's see where we can take that one. So I don't necessarily exclude customers that come my way, but I also don't say yes to every single customer that comes my way. So I would say it depends on where you're at in your business, if you're in the early stages, if you're in the middle, or you're in the advanced stages. For myself, I'm actually now starting a new company by this summer, and so I'm very strategically creating new opportunities with customers that come my way. And part of that is about how I engage customers who contact me, what they're actually asking for versus what I would assume they want. And working through that process is it's a continuous evolution. So I would definitely say do not limit yourself as a startup, and then as a more mature business, be very, very specific about what business you're in and what business you're not in, and don't feel obligated to say yes to everyone, because you can't possibly serve everyone and everyone's needs. And secondarily, what I would say is always establish excellent partners to work with that you can refer to, and what they do is they refer back to you. Last night we were working out, doing our normal routine, and I had business coming in while I was not even working my business. And that's what happens when you establish these relationships over the course of time. People know what you're in, they know what you're not in, and they also refer back to you when you do include them as well.
Good points. Yeah, so how many people here really know who your customers are? Can you state it in a sentence or two?
That's a good one.
You should be able to do that. And you're right, as your business grows, you can become a little more select. You're not maybe quite in financial dire to take every dollar that comes in. But even when you know your customers, then start figuring out the subsets of that and what's the value of these types of customers and so forth. And it's okay to do that. Market research, as necessary. But another area, really, the business you're in is there's competition. I don't think there's hardly anybody in the room that doesn't have competitors, whether it's local or national. And I think someone said earlier about growing up in the 80s about the competition. Yeah, well, I did, and you know, we wanted to beat the competition. And so in order to do that, you got to find out who they are, who's working for them, and then what's their strength and what's yours, and differentiate. You know, the jack of all trades, it's been proven, generally does not work, although Amazon's doing a pretty good job of it right now. Yeah, so a little research, figure out that competition, and it's okay to segment your customers.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up to questions. So this is your opportunity to think back, what have you heard so far today in the conversations that they've shared with you? Where do you have questions that you want to gain further insight from? What advice could they give you? Maybe you're going back to the office this afternoon, you have something on your plate, maybe that you brought something in on your mind when you walked in. Here's your opportunity, they're all yours. You've got 15 minutes yet with this group, all right? And I'm sure they would meet with you afterwards as well. So what questions do you have for them? What insight further do you want to gain? What advice would you like to ask of them? Yep, here, I'm gonna bring you the mic.
I just need to know who wrote Traction?
Gino Wickman.
Gino Wickman. And just, I mean, I can pick out companies in here. Dave Dietz, Preferences on Traction, Custom Graphics, True IT. Harlan teaches Traction in and out on a daily basis. So, anybody else who actually implements it?
Okay, we'll go back to this. I told you I don't need a mic. The three of you are definitely not myopic. You're not static in your background. And Rachel, you kind of touched on opportunity, and I like to say, how do you deal with opportunity versus immediacy? Where you might be going, I really want to start expanding this, I want to be going toward that market, but in the meantime, I have a stack over here that's got to be addressed. How do you avoid being stuck in the immediacy, but then also how do you avoid the shiny object?
Well, I would say the biggest thing that I've learned, even just over the past 2 years, is focus. So I think anytime someone hears me speaking, whether it's at our lunches or wherever we're at, because I love opportunity. And I see everything as opportunity. I see my failures, I see my successes, I see a hurdle, every single thing to me is an opportunity. And so I've had to really, really hone in. I had an excellent coach who, because I do have a very unique and diverse background, it's a very unusual thing. I typically don't share any of it because it doesn't make sense to anyone. But what she did is she had me put my life and my background into 3 buckets, into 3 categories. So I have my construction real estate background. I have my service industry background with healthcare, and then I have my kind of teaching, training, business consulting type background. And so I have those 3 buckets. So when someone gives me an opportunity, I go immediately to those 3 buckets. Does it meet the needs of those 3 buckets? Is it something that I should prioritize today? Is it urgent? Is it not urgent? And where do I put that on the shelf of opportunity? And so every single day I have people approaching me with different things, and you should do this and you should do that. And I took a very conscientious back seat to say no to everything for a long period of time, and I never have a problem saying no. But now I have a strategy about that where I align to the focus areas. And right now, the 2 things that I'm focused on are growing the Coatings Authority and aligning that vision. And the second thing is expanding my current business that I've been working on evolving over the course of the last year. And if it doesn't fall into those 2 categories right now, I just simply say no to it. Does that help to answer your question? Okay.
I guess I always try too to think of the long term when making decisions. So it's easy to keep on doing the same thing, but I always try to think, okay, if we do this and I get through the hard part of this next number of months or a year to develop something new or start something new, is that really something that is going to be worthwhile in the long run? And that helps me make that decision. If it's something that's, kind of short term, that helps decide.
I agree with everything that was said. I also sometimes think, am I overpaid? Am I an overpaid filer right now? You know, and so I know that's kind of how I discipline myself. I also have a rule, because I get excited when I go to some conferences and they say, sign up today, or Robin, will you serve on this board? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna help you. And my new rule is, I will give you an answer tomorrow. Because then it gives me some time to let the excitement wane a little bit. Kelly's laughing. but because I get excited and I want to help everybody, but I know I can't. So that's my little tool. 24 hours is my rule. But again, yes, I am an overpaid toilet brusher, but that's part of our team at work. So we all have our little tools. But should you be spending your time knowing how much your value of an hour is? What would your pay be? Can somebody else do that better than you? That's kind of how I help align what I do to immediacy versus long-term. I really try to stay within the long-term most of the time. Very rarely do I let myself get caught up in the immediate.
Russ, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about empowering your employees, getting the right people, getting talented people, the fact that you don't know everything and other people. I ran a couple different organizations. I've had a problem with, because I like lifting up the volunteers too, or the workers or whatever. What tips would you have to, how do you get credit? I've had people accuse me of not doing anything. Robin's kind of go back to years that your staff's doing all this work, and then it's like, what do we need you for? Type of thing. And it's like, getting tips on how do you keep yourself important when you're trying to get everybody else important? And I've worked for boards, and I'm talking about all the people that work with me and all the things they're doing, and then I've had people say, well, what do you do? So you got any tips how you keep yourself without looking like you're self-serving or self-centered or whatever? How do you do that?
Maintain
going to ask the same question.
Great.
Yeah, maintain relevance.
My team, like I said, when I first started, they're like, what is she doing? But then they started to realize that I take the credit for all the faults, and I do give them credit for the successes. When we make a mistake publicly, I kind of follow our crisis communication plan. You got to own it. And they're like, Robin's got to handle this because we're going to screw it up, And so you own it, you study it, you debrief it with your team, you analyze your policies and your practices, then you go back out in the public and you own it, and then you make amends if you need to, or if it's necessary. But you need to be the one that says, guess what? I don't care if my frontline 10-hour-a-week person did something wrong. I'm responsible. And they really count on me to do that. My team also, I have a board that sometimes gets too involved operationally. And so I kind of buffer my staff from board's direction, and they value my protecting them, if you will. But it took a while because I have such a different leadership style. When I took over this little organization that's been around since 1972, I found out when I got in, I was hired to fix the sinking ship. We had 90 grand debt. We weren't making payroll. Utilities were being turned off. That's how bad the Fargo Youth Commission got for a little while. I mean, it was a 40-year organization that was gonna die. And so when I got in, again, not knowing what I was getting into, paying attention, taking care of our staff, realigning everything. Within a year, we had that debt paid off. We had $250 in the bank. We went from the first year an $800,000 budget to this year it's just $3 million, and that's in 5 years. So I think that the proof is in the pudding a little bit. They appreciate where I've taken the organization, and now they have job security because a lot of them were afraid that we were just going to close down. So that's the value that I bring, and but I try to do it in a humble manner, and I think staying humble is probably the most important thing, and knowing I can't do it without them, and they know how much I value them.
I think owning up to those failures is a big thing. When the company sees you do that, they already know that you also have credit for the success. when there's 3 seconds left and you're over there looking for the ball just off point, there's an air ball once in a while, or it's off the backboard and you lose the game, but that's gonna happen. But I think that balances things out, the success and the failure.
Yeah. To maintain relevancy, I think what I experienced was how I failed in that and how I succeeded in it. And so I look back to say, how could I have done things differently, and how am I now doing things differently? One of the things that I succeeded with was surrounding myself and building incredible teams that had such loyalty to me that I literally knew I could walk out and they didn't even need me, because they became so successful and they were so empowered, and they looked to me to take those hits. And what happened was we established the level of trust and level of integrity in our team, in our business, in our relationships, that they ultimately knew who the person was who was owning and running the ship, but they always give credit back that way. So I never sought to be the front face of anything that I did in any aspect of my career and my journey. And what happened was it became a little bit of a detriment, because you kind of devalue yourself in your position. But the benefit was I built these incredible teams around me, and they were the ones who continued to bring back the first call went to Rachael, because Rachael would know, she would understand, she'd pull the trigger, she'd know exactly how to analyze that. So there's really a balancing act in that, because there's really not a strategic way or a right way or a wrong way to do it. But I would say it's very important as a leader to maintain your relevancy and to be that person, that the go-to person that everyone needs to have in the organization. As we talked about in the beginning of this, your title is not just a title, it's about who you are and it's about how you're running your organization. And people know that, and it becomes ingrained into the organization. Now with the Coatings Authority, I think my team is so empowered, they don't really truly know what I do because everything happens behind the scenes, and it's one of those things where it's a different type of organization. And I don't necessarily need to seek the credit or the recognition, because it's my company and I want to see it succeed and run. So it's a different philosophy than my corporate role with establishing that relevancy. But they do understand the value when you create a culture of transparency and when you create a culture of honesty and integrity. And maybe that's a roundabout way of explaining something that's difficult to explain, but I would say you definitely need to maintain your relevancy, and you also need to know when to take a back seat, and it's okay to let the other people around you shine.
Real quick, sorry. What I tell my managers is, if your department falls apart when you leave, shame on you. If you don't develop your team to operate while you're not here, you are not doing your job, because that's not good for our organization. That is self-serving, and they get it. And so they make sure everything's in line before they go on vacation. They train their team, because their team's performance is a reflection on them. So never feel threatened by people that are smarter than you. In fact, hire people that are smarter than you and have the confidence to let that go. That would be my advice.
Yeah, exactly, Robin. I was gonna say congratulations.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, that's good. And if you want to do something else, then start another project, create, another deal. I mean, in the software business, you have your team, they wrote the software and things were going okay, but then you got another few people off to the side that said, what we have is okay, but it's not really that great. Let's create something new and better and different. So then you work with that. So you're always improving and doing that next generation of activity.
Great questions. I'm going to ask the panel now to leave us with some advice, maybe some time for another question here, but I do want to make sure that they have an opportunity to share some hints and tips with us. So have your pen, notepad, your technology out. You might want to write some of this down. But
Also,
yeah.
get out your business cards.
Oh yeah.
Because we've got some cool stuff.
Are you going to walk around with the jar and collect business cards?
I am.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I think if each one of you, I think you have a short list of items here, and each one of you can take all 4 at the same time. And you're going to share with us bits of executive advice, recommendations of any tools, books that you have, a last tidbit on a lesson learned, or things to remember as you lead your team. So take them how you want, but we'll go one by one.
I'll leave with a couple words. I gave a commencement address a few years ago and kind of looked back at that before I came here today and some of the things that I thought were important, and I believe it is here too, and that's first one deals around action. You know, doing something, making decisions. It's better to take action than to do nothing. Okay? And you're stuck a lot of times, and you're not sure which way to go, but you can't just do nothing. You know, there's nothing worse than living a life of the false comfort of inaction, right? So think about that, take action. The other thing, we didn't really talk about it today much, but motivation. You need motivation, your team, it's very important. And you talk about the books and so forth. This helps bring up again that I'm old, but I saw a motivational speaker a few decades ago named Zig Ziglar. And he said, people often say motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. So take action and then find out what motivates you and do that.
Yes, books
No.
and... So my 3 tips are going to be focus, because your ability to focus is in direct proportion to your business success and growth. The second thing is to build your team, and we talked a lot about that today, and building those successful people around you allows you to achieve at a faster and greater level. And then establish a plan for continuous education, learning, and growing. If you're not continuously learning, I believe that you'll die. I mean, it's part of life to continue to evolve and grow. The tools, books, and mentors that I would recommend, the tool we talked about was my blueprint tool that my wonderful coach has given me. And that's a very quick and easy outline. If anyone has interest in that, I can share that. The book is definitely, at least for this last year, is Traction. That's been the biggest eye-opener for me and an easy implementing philosophy around that. I would say to continue to read multiple books as much as you can, but a lot of times people will read a book and they will say, oh, that was a great book, and then what? So what I do is, if I read a book, my intention is to underline the key components of the book and immediately implement. And if I don't get through the first few pages of, okay, here's what I'm gonna do with this book, the book is out, because I'm not gonna waste my time if I'm not gonna implement the strategies that are in that book. So every single book that you see on my shelf in my home has underlines and has notes and has, I've implemented aspects of the book. So I would say don't just read to read, but read to actually do something and take action. Lessons learned that I have had to remain fearless, establish opportunities through continuous change, and always see the obstacles as opportunities. And the other piece of advice I would say is serve your team and they will always serve you.
Wow, how do you follow that up, guys? Oh, executive advice, never be intimidated by people that are smarter than you. Reach for them. Surround yourself with people of differing opinions, because you're never going to learn anything from like-minded people. And that includes politics and business sense and lifestyles. Variety is my spice of life. I love all different kinds of people, and I get bored if some, quick story, when I was in my dating days, before I got remarried, so many guys would agree with everything that I said, and I said, this is not going to work. So, you know, I learn from different people, and that's what gets my blood pumping. Recommendations for tools and mentors. You know, I don't spend as much time reading books. Obviously, I'm embarrassed, Rachel, I don't. Everything I learn is from people. And so the more people that you can expose yourself to, the more networking groups you can be in, the more times you just go take your computer in a coffee shop and mingle with people, the more you're gonna learn, the more you're gonna learn about your community. You need to have a good pulse on what your market is and what your community values in order to know how to reach them. So to me, having a good feel of community values and current events is very important. Lessons I've learned along the way, gosh, where do you start? You can push limits, but you can only lead as fast as your team will follow. You can push those limits, but you also need to have a market. I mean, a lot of people think they have a product and they're going to develop a market. It's just the opposite. You need to have a market, and you develop the products to that market. Is that fair? You can't force feed something that people don't want. I have learned, speaking back at the 80s, I came from a family of 3 business owners. I'm the black sheep in the family, but it was a very competitive, cutthroat culture in the 80s, and I'm so glad that's gone. Competition motivates me. Have you ever seen the Michael Jordan thing where somebody just schools him on the court and he just smiles and he's like, let's go. And it's not even a matter of putting the competitor down, but when you surround yourself with people that are better than you, you're gonna play up. You're gonna, golf with people that are better than you. You're gonna play up to their game. That's how I grow. Don't be intimidated. Never be intimidated. You always have something to share and add value. And like I said, again, if you surround yourself with more successful people, you're just gonna rise to that occasion, and it's gonna be better for your organization and for what you can do for your people.
Kurt, one last item we didn't talk about, but why do you own or run your business? Right? Grow it, make money, be able to relax, be able to vacation, etc. And don't forget to do those things, And you can do a little bit. I mean, you're always busy, but know when and how to relax and go somewhere. I mean, that's why you're doing this. That's why you're putting in all that effort. And none of us know how long we'll be around, so don't wait until you're 80 and say, well, then I'm gonna go on vacation. Try to do a little bit at a time, all the time. And that was my kind of bad plug for my travel agency.
So how many people here in the room, how many people did not have to ask someone to take an extended lunch today? That's why you own business. Chris?
I was just, Rob, and you had talked about how you came into the business and it was down, and then you brought it up to another level. And I remember you telling me about a big national award, and I don't think that a lot of the people in this room realize what you've done, and I think that's worth mentioning. Sure.
I'll break. So Boys and Girls Club of America has about 4,300 clubs across the country. It's a 150-year-old organization helping kids at risk, giving them constructive things to do with a safe place to be. And I was just recently at a Midwest regional conference, and there are 5 conferences in the country, and our little Fargo Boys and Girls Club is the #1 club in the country.